Thank you, Madam Deputy President. I indicate that I will support this motion to refer these two bills to the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee, Legislation Committee. They are very important bills. They have significant implications for our civil society, our law, the way we deal with spying, the way we deal with foreign interference, and they create new offences. Anything that creates new offences has to be taken exceptionally seriously. Unlike Senator McKim, my reasons are a little bit different, but there is a very legitimate complaint in relation to the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security. That committee does not allow participating members. There is nobody from the Greens, nobody from the crossbench involved in it. Yes, you can read all the submissions, well, at least the ones that are published. They're not all published, but you don't hear the evidence of the security agencies, and you don't really know how it's all going to end up. And then we've had this process reach its next stage this week, in which the report of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security has just introduced its recommendations, and the government already has the amendments on which which are based on that report. We get exposed to them today or yesterday, and we are being asked to vote on them this week. And we are told that we have had ample opportunity to consider these, both the bills and their potential amendments. That's not true, and we haven't. I have had the opportunity to consider these a little more than perhaps Senator McKim has, because I've had briefings from the Attorney-General's Department and ASIO. And I'm very grateful for that. And I have to say some of my concerns about the original bills, which were I regard as quite alarming in their content, have been allayed by the amendments based on the PJCIS recommendations. And that's a good thing. But I've had essentially 24 hours to get my head around them. Now, we've had this situation before, many times as a matter of fact. I've been here now 4 years, and we've had quite a raft of national security legislation, anti-terrorism legislation, and it's embraced things like, or introduced things like control orders and preventive detention orders. Invariably, there has been some pretext that it be hurried up, that it was urgent, and then we end up with control orders and preventive detention orders not being used. Nobody uses them. They're urgent, urgent, urgent. We have to get them into the books because there's some sort of national security crisis, and they don't get used. What we do get, though, is free speech restrictions. And we saw in the case of Section 35P of the ASIO Act unreasonable restraint on free speech. I railed against it at the time it went through. I knew it wasn't a good thing. I knew it was totally unnecessary, as a matter of fact. And nobody took any notice, of course, just a crossbench senator. But then it went to Roger Giles QC, who was the Inspector General of Intelligence and Security Legislation, said it's inappropriate, it's gone too far. So guess what? The government changed it. And then I drew attention to the fact that there was a similar provision in another act affecting the Australian Federal Police, and to his credit, the former Attorney General, George Brandis, agreed to amend that without having a fight over it. So fixing up the legislation later is one option, but another way to deal with it is let's have a look at it in the committee where we can all participate, we can all canvass our concerns and deal with it in the normal process that we should be applying in this Senate. There is no case for urgency. We can conduct by-elections without this legislation. We've conducted many by-elections before without this legislation, and no one can point to any adverse consequences for having done so. It is not necessary to rush it. We should take our time.
Thank you, Senator Lyon.